This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Helene Woods, and this is Let's Quilt, episode number 27. Today we're going to start by making the straps for our tote. And you take your flat piece of your strap material and we're going to fold it in half. Take your iron and just crease that. Now we're going to open it up and we're going to take our outside edges and bring them right to that fold line. And there again we're going to press that again. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in the other side to the same fold line, and I'm going to press that also. Now the third step, we're going to bring those two edges that are folded in, bring them together so you have a nice almost 4 layers of fabric for your strap, and we're going to press that also. Now I finished pressing this one. Now you can take your other piece of fabric and make your other strap because we're going to need 2 of them. Now I'm going to start sewing our strap. When we do that, I want you to sew 1/4 inch from each of the side, and that will give you a nice firm strap to sew onto your tote. The first thing we're going to do when we put our straps on, I want you to take the ends and turn them in about 1/2 inch and press those. It makes a nice even edge. Then I'm going to have you measure up from the bottom, and it's from this bottom edge, not the one that's down here. This is the actual edge, and I'd like you to measure up 6.5 inches. And then place your strap there. We'll mark it. Place your strap bottom, or the part that you turned, right there, and then just place it right next to your block. And we'll pin that. I'm going to do the same for over here. Now next we're going to stitch, and I want you to stitch right along the bottom edge, back stitch a couple of times, and then come up and just follow the same stitching that you put in previously all the way up. And then I'd like for you to stop, and it's about, let me measure this for you. It's about 3 inches from the top edge of your tote, and that's where you're going to stop stitching. And there again, I would double stitch that and back stitch it. I'll do the same thing on this side. And now I'm going to sew the strap on my back side of my tote. So there again, I'm going to turn under about 1/2 inch. I'm going to place it here on my marks, and they will be corresponding to the same as we have on the front. And I'm going to sew this strap on also. One other thing I can suggest as you're doing this, be sure that you take it and make sure that you have the strap going in the correct direction. You don't want to turn it over and be backwards then. And just lay it down just like it normally would if you were going to pick it up. And we have our straps all put on our totes. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to sew the tote together. Now the only thing you have to be careful when you're doing this is to be careful that you don't sew your straps in too. So I usually take a little pin and I just kind of anchor those before I start to sew. And I'm going to do it with the bottom and with the top also. Just kind of tuck them out of the way. Now we're going to take the totes and we're going to sew them together, and we're going to stitch the sides from here to here and the other side from the top to the bottom, and then we're going to sew the bottom itself right across here. And these will be 1/2 inch seams. I finished my stitching, and now you can see how this looks. I've sewn my seams here on the side, across the bottom, and up this side. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to get the bottom put together. Now, when we go to put these seams together, I'm going to show you how you do this. We're going to take the bottom part, and we've got a seam here. I'm going to open this up. You don't have to press it because this stuff stays really stiff. Then I'm going to take our little side seam here, and I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to join those. So it's just make sure that the seam that's in the middle of the bottom and the seam in the middle of the side, and we're going to put those together, right sides together. And we're going to pin those. And I suggest you pin all the way through on each seam. Then we're going to bring this out. And we're going to make this flat all the way across. Can you see that? And we're going to stitch a 1/2 inch seam right along there. Now I have this all pinned together. I'm going to do the same on the other side. With these seams, I suggest you also backstitch on the first stitch and on the last stitch. Make sure that it stays put. All right, we have our bottoms all sewn together. And now the next thing you're going to have to do is you do the exact same thing with your lining. This is my lining, and as you can see, I've sewn up the side seams and the side seam on this side, and I've sewn my bottom together. But on this seam here, I've left this open for about 6 inches, just so I can get my hand in there to pull the tote through. Now on my lining, I went ahead and put a little pocket on. And you can do this at any time. You can put it on before you sew the lining together, or you can put it on afterwards. And here it is. I just took a piece of scrap fabric, took a piece of single fold, but the double wide bias tape, and I just sewed that on. And I come down 3 or 4 inches from the top if you decide to put a pocket on, and that gives you a nice little pocket on the inside of your tote. I'm going to take the lining and I'm going to place it inside of the tote. Right. Be careful of your straps again, and I'm going to take my pin out. You don't need it now. I'm going to match the seams, the side seams, and then I'm going to you can open them up if you want, or you can just have one seam going one way and one seam going the other way. I think that would work out fine. I'm going to pin this all the way around on the top side. And there again, when you get this all pinned with the lining to the tote, then we're going to stitch again a 1/2 inch down. Okay, when I sew this top seam, I'm going to take the back of my sewing machine off, so that way I have just this small area here to work with, and makes it much easier when you're trying to go around, like if you were doing a sleeve on a blouse or something like that. See, and it just fits in there very nicely. All right, I have my top seam sewn in here, and now I'm going to turn the tote to the outside. And there again, we take it out this way, and then we bring our tote through that hole that we left in our lining. You have to wrestle with it a little bit, but it will come through. All right, we have our lining here, and I'm going to we're going to sew up this little hole that we made, and I'm just to suggest to you that you just bring those seams together, pin them, and then just make about 1/4 inch seam right in that. Put it down and then turn your lining inside. Now I'm going to suggest you take your iron and just iron this down a little bit, and then again sew the top edge a 1/2 inch seam again. to place a little bit of cardboard in the bottom of your tote bag, and then I use just a glue stick. And I'm going to bring some fabric over, and I'm just run a piece of glue right around along that and place it down. I'm going to fold in an edge, and I'm going to do the same thing here. And then you can, if you want to, you can tuck these edges in, bring them down, put a little glue there, press it down. The same thing here. Then I take it and I'm going to put it into my tote, but I'm going to place it like this so that we have a nice clean surface in our bag. If you like to make a closure for your tote, I just get some of the Velcro, not the sticky kind, the kind that you're going to have to sew on, and place that. I place mine on this edge here on my other bag, and then I can just bring it, and you can bring them closed, and then they're nice and secure. Let me show you a variation of the totes. Now, when you're placing your 2.5-inch squares on the lining and the outside of the tote, if you wanted a shorter tote, you would put it on the long side of your fabric. And if you'd like a taller tote, then you would put it on the short side of your fabric. And the instructions are exactly the same. On our next show, we're going to be visiting a friend of mine who lives in Northern California, and she's going to share her quilting studio with us. Until next time.